Hey folks, today we're comparing these three wireless gaming headsets from Turtle Beach. This is the Stealth series of headsets, Gen 3, which means it's the latest version of them. We have the 500, the 600 and the 700 models. And as you may be able to tell from the naming convention, the 500 is intended to be the introductory model to this range. And then we have the mid-range headset, which is the 600, and the premium 700. However, now that I've done testing with all three, some of the results have been fairly surprising. First off, just flat out in terms of build quality, I would say this does improve as you move up the range, with the most basic build being the 500. As you can see, it uses the cloth headband here in comparison to the all-in-one foam headbands of its two brethren. And I've got to say though, all three are comfortable. However, the 500 does feel a little more freeing around the head, whereas the 600 and 700 can be a little bit tighter, but once you've got them set up correctly, it's not a problem, and all three can be worn for extended periods. Now, while the 500 and 600 are effectively plastic build, the 700 does also incorporate metal as well, giving it that a little bit more strength that a headset often needs. However, it does mean that it's going to be just a tad weightier when you are wearing it. Now, both the 600 and 700 have adjustable straps. However, the 500 has a fixed head strap, which might make it a little more limiting in terms of head shapes. And finally, in terms of build quality, the 500 does just use a basic padding for the ear cups. It's comfortable enough, it's absolutely fine, but it might not have the same longevity as what we get with these other two headsets. The 600 uses a more breathable mesh foam, and I've got to say it works very well. And then the 700 has this kind of faux leather material, which does just feel the most premium of the three. Next up then, in terms of audio and sound quality, so we begin with 40mm drivers on the 500, and I've got to say, they are actually really impressive, and the sound is really fantastic, especially for a wireless gaming headset. Okay, if you're going to be using these headphones for listening to a lot of music or movies, then you might want something that brings you a bit more power, but for a budget offering, 40mm is really generous. The 600 ups that a little bit to 50mm drivers, and that just means it packs a bit more of a punch, especially when it comes to the lows. And finally, the 700 model upgrades this further with 60mm drivers, and as you can imagine, these are definitely the most powerful. One thing I would say, perhaps a bit of a disadvantage, is that because we have these large drivers, the sound does actually come out a little bit more muffled, especially straight out of the box before you've made adjustments. That really deep bass is definitely notable. But whilst we're speaking of sound, of course, as a headset, this isn't all about listening. You can do speaking too with the inbuilt microphones. Now, wireless gaming headsets don't typically have a great reputation when it comes to mic quality, but Turtle Beach here have, I think, done a pretty decent job. However, the results are pretty surprising. Here's the mic tests. So first off, we have the audio mic test for the Stealth 500. Okay, so how does this sound, the microphone on the Stealth 500? I've done no post-editing on this sound, so yeah, this is straight as it comes out of the box. Testing, testing. Next up, we have the mic test for the Stealth 600. So right now you are hearing me speak through the microphone of the Stealth 600. How does this sound in comparison? Testing, testing. And finally, we do of course have the mic test with the Stealth 700. So this is the most premium headset of the three. Does this get reflected in the quality of the microphone? How does this sound? How does the mic sound for the Stealth 700? Testing, testing. So those tests were recorded with straight out of the box settings for these headsets, and I've done a few tests as well off screen, and I've got to say the results are fairly consistent, and that is, in my opinion, the 500 I think actually has the better mic quality. I don't know what the difference is in terms of the hardware here, or why being a budget headset that would be the case, but I don't know, what do you guys think? You can definitely tell more with the 600 and 700 that the audio is coming through a wireless gaming headset. It just sounds a little more clear to me with the 500. In terms of connections, whichever headset you want to purchase, make sure you get either the headset that's compatible with PS5 or the headset that's compatible with Xbox. So because I am a PS5 owner, the headsets I own here are all compatible with PS5. However, they are also compatible with a number of other devices, and that's because each headset includes at least one Wi-Fi dongle, which will connect the headset over 2.4 gigahertz. In my case, that's going to be compatible with the PS5 and with my PC. But with a simple switch of a button, you can also switch over to Bluetooth connectivity, which just opens up a world of possibilities as to how these headsets can connect to other devices. Maybe you want to connect to your smart TV or to your Nintendo Switch, maybe to another PC over Bluetooth or to your mobile phone. All three of these headsets will be very capable of doing so. Now, the 700 being the most premium, one slight change here is that this also includes an additional Wi-Fi dongle. So instead of one, you will get two. That means that you can have multiple devices connected simultaneously using those two dongles, as well as the fact that you can still connect over Bluetooth. The only annoying quibble with the 700 is that when you want to update the firmware, both of the wireless dongles have to be connected into the computer that you are updating from. I don't know why that is. It's a little bit annoying, but it is what it is. One thing I almost forgot to mention is the battery life. Kind of important, seeing as how these are wireless gaming headsets. Now, the 500, which I'm wearing, boasts up to 40 hours of battery life, which even on its own is really impressive, okay, for a wireless gaming headset. However, the 600 and the 700 models actually have up to 80 hours of battery life, so doubling that of the 500. So in conclusion, which headset is right for you? Obviously, if you're on a budget, you're going to be drawn closer to the 500 series. And let me tell you, it's actually a great choice. In fact, in terms of the mic quality, I think it's the best of all three. So if you are going to be using your headset with a lot of team chat, then definitely consider the 500. Now, if you want to have something with much better build quality and that increased connectivity options, then the 700 series may be worth spending the extra. Although just bear in mind you will probably want to be spending extra time in those equalizer settings just in order to make the most of those 60mm drivers and hopefully reduce some of the muffle that you get with the sound straight out of the box. On the other hand, the 600 series here kind of offers the best of both. The build is a slightly more run-down version of the 700, but it keeps the same overall design and comfort, and it is much closer in price to the 500 than it is to the 700. But overall, I think this is a decent range from Turtle Beach, and I think that each headset offers enough to justify its existence. But which is your favourite, and have you tried any of the three stealth headsets from Turtle Beach? As always, I've been Simon from Simon's Reviews. Thanks for stopping by checking out this comparison, and I'll see you soon.